The financial views and opinions expressed by the host and guests on this program do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of 1077 The Bronx, Rider University, or Certified Wealth Management and Investment. The material discussed is not designed to provide the listeners with individual financial, legal, or tax advice.
Show me the money!
Where's my money, man?
Here comes the money!
Here we go.
It's time to grow your bank as 1077 The Bronx presents Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, a certified financial planner professional with certified wealth management and investment. Kurt and his team of financial guests will help you turn those singles into seas of green and plan your financial future accordingly. Now here's your money managing host for the hour, Kurt Baker.
Are you taking full advantage of the development of different social media platforms that have created new avenues for marketing that aid in the success of companies and brands? Do you want to learn how to focus on creating profitable and personal brands on LinkedIn and the importance of social media in your business marketing strategies? CEO of Uplevel Media LLC and host of the Good Girls Get Rich podcast, Karen Yankovitch is a LinkedIn strategist, business consultant, and speaker who will guide you on how to create wealth by combining smart business practices with the simple, proven systems that develop and maintain strong customer relationships. With over 20 years of experience, she will share profile tips that will help you become more confident to develop contact with people who can positively impact your lives, business, and finances. Awesome, Karen. Thanks for coming back. I know you were on the show once before, and I didn't realize that you had been doing this for 20 years because I didn't realize LinkedIn had been around 20 years.
Well, LinkedIn hasn't been around 20 years. I've been doing marketing for
kidding.
that long. I'm a little older than social media, but just a little bit.
There was something before social media?
There was, you know what? We're coming back around to what there was before social media, and that's actually talking to people to market your business.
Yes, I do like talking to people.
Yeah.
So, no, I know what you do is really cool because I remember first time somebody said, "Are you connected on LinkedIn?" I was like, "What? Excuse me?" I didn't know what they were talking about. And I think I knew about 3 people that actually were on it at the time, and this is many years ago. And I go, "Okay, I connected." And there's my profile, and that was about it. I was connected, but I had no idea what it meant.
So, Kurt, you're old enough then to remember that when LinkedIn first started, it was like, well, I'll connect with anybody on Facebook, but I'm really picky about who I connect with on LinkedIn, which is so silly because that's where business is happening, right? So I'm not really sure why that was happening in the beginning, but thankfully that is not the case anymore.
Yeah, LinkedIn's turned into quite an amazing thing. It really is. It's a great way to contact people, stay in connection with them. And that's the basics, right? Because, I mean, what's nice when like somebody moves jobs or starts a business, you can still find them, right? Like, where did Joe Blow go? And you're like, oh, there he is. He's wherever. He's moved out of state and he's over here and this is what he's doing now. So you get a great synopsis of what people are doing. But I think it's one of those things that's awesome, but heavily underutilized. I know I keep having these periods where I'm like, I'm going to get on LinkedIn and start using it. And then it fades. And then I go, I'm going to get on LinkedIn and start using it. Then it fades. So I think I'm doing pretty good now for this year. I think I've finally got it to where I'm actually using it. So tell us, like, how do people turn from just connecting with people and forgetting about it and saying, I have no idea what's going on with this thing, getting kind of the basics set up, and then starting to actually use it to promote what you're doing.
So to take one quick step back before we jump into that, like you talked about, like LinkedIn is really getting to be hot. And I think the reason for that is it's virtual networking.
Right.
And when has that ever been more important in the world, right? So what we've learned over the past few years is that our digital footprint is important. People are Googling us and what comes up is important now. And, and 5 years ago, that was less important. Now that it is incorporated into everything we do. So first and foremost, you have control of what they see, right? So you've got to take some time to create a great profile. You've got to look worthy of people's time and money and, investment and whatever that looks like. And, a lot of people, and I get this because this is what we all did. You look at LinkedIn and it's like your online resume. And I firmly believe that your resume is all about who you used to be. And your LinkedIn profile should be positioning you for who you're becoming. Kind of like dress for the job you want. So shifting the energy of your profile from a resume to your brand. And you have a brand regardless of what your role is. Everybody has a brand, and that brand is a big part of what leverages your success and whatever success looks like for you, right? So first and foremost, you have to You have to do the work on the profile so that you're showing up looking as if you're worthy of people's investment and that they know why you and over a million other people that do what you do.
Well, I think that's great. And you mentioned brand, which I think people forget. I mean, companies talk about branding all the time, and they want to cultivate their brand. They want to rebrand. They want to change. They want to focus. Well, people have to do that too, because you fit within that, and people reach out. I know there's lots of people that have, the advanced, LinkedIn Connect services where they can actually try to locate employees that might fit jobs that they want. And even if you're not looking for a job, it's nice to have these contacts, because if anything ever happens, you're building up all these relationships online, which actually are extremely valuable. I've known a number of highly paid people that have used LinkedIn when they transfer from one job to another to find an even more significant job.
Yep.
And they were not looking for anything.
Yep.
This happens all the time, but most people don't realize that's what happens.
Yeah, well, there's so many things that we do know, and we just don't connect the dots to bring it back to LinkedIn. Like what we hear a lot is, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, I know what you know is important, right? But who you know is also important. And if you ask people, like, where did they get their biggest opportunity from, the last job or their biggest clients, 9 out of 10 times they tell you referrals. Right. Yet they're out there spending all their time on all these other platforms. So if referrals and the people-to-people piece of marketing is where the vast majority of your business, your opportunities, your jobs come from, then LinkedIn is where you need to be spending more time at, right? Because that's where that happens. And, just keep in mind too, though, that LinkedIn is not the place to go to sell a pen, right? You're not going to sell something for 59 cents there, but it is where you go to get a distributor that wants to buy 100,000 of your pens, right? So you need to have a bigger mindset and be showing up looking for the biggest opportunities. I like to refer to it as like flipping the funnel. Like, just stop thinking about all the low end things that you've got going to build your career or your business, and start thinking bigger. And that's where LinkedIn shines. Because
they're all out there. All of these high, very, very influential people, all your influencers are on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
They're all on LinkedIn.
It's the highest income, the highest income ratios are on LinkedIn, the highest, I can go on and on and on about all the reasons to do that. But at the end of the day, it's so much fun to be building relationships with cool people. And that's what we do on LinkedIn. We get to pick who we want to hang out with, and we get to hang out with them. Okay, so that's what we want. So in order to do that, you have to set your brand correctly. So it's not a resume. It's a personal branding platform where you're going to describe what you want to become. How do we start that process to make because I know there's a lot of parts on the LinkedIn profile. Yeah. Where do you start? I know we only have an hour together, but so where do we start, and what are the major pieces they need to make sure they get right? So here's the thing. LinkedIn changes this stuff every 5 minutes. Like today, literally, I learned 3 new things about 3 new features on LinkedIn. So it happens constantly. Okay. So just know that it's never finished, but just taking some time to really, again, remember that your profile is about you, not your business, not your role at your job. It's about you as an influencer. What makes you brilliant at what you do? So start with that. Keep in mind that it needs to be in first person. You're building relationships. So a profile that says Karen Yankovitch is blah, blah, blah. Like it immediately puts a wall up. Right. So you want to make sure that you are feeling like you're speaking to people. And then also keep in mind that LinkedIn is a massive search engine. So I am never, ever going to teach a strategy that says, do all these things and then sit back on the beach and wait for all the business to come in. Like that's not what I teach. However, let's not leave any money on the table. Let's make sure that you're thinking about what are people searching for that you want to come up as the search result. If you're a speaker, what do you speak about? Are you using those words in your profile? Right? So those kinds of things, use every character LinkedIn gives you in all of the different sections, because it is such a massive search engine. And why not use all the real estate we've got offered to us, available to us there? So I think that those are some things that I would think about. The other thing that I would mention is, and this is a pretty big hot topic right now, and that is LinkedIn's got this new-ish feature called LinkedIn Creator Mode. So when you log onto LinkedIn and you get a regular LinkedIn profile, you have a regular LinkedIn profile. And for the vast majority of employees, that's great. That's fine. It's still fine for a lot of them. If you are, an accountant in a big in a big firm, you're using LinkedIn to build relationships, but you're not creating content. You don't really need to create a huge brand of yourself. But if you have any kind of a role as an entrepreneur or in sales or anything like that, you want to use LinkedIn Creator Mode. It shifts the energy of your profile and showcases you more as an influencer. And it gives you all all kinds of new features and additional features that you can use to drive people to your brand. And some of the features literally say, tell us more, give us hashtags you want to be found for, tell us more about the kinds of services you provide so that we know when to send people to your profile. And that's LinkedIn Creator Mode. And that's literally a toggle box, and there's a resources section in your profile. And it's just a toggle box, toggling it on and off. So that's something that I get asked a lot about, and that is, I 100% think if you are a business owner or have a sales role, you should be using LinkedIn Creator Mode.
So the Creator Mode is basically just additional features to the basic mode, right?
It reorganizes your profile.
Okay.
So my profile is in Creator Mode. So if anybody's not sure what it looks like, you can go look at my profile. But you can see I've got additional places I can put links, and I've got hashtags that I can put in places. And my content is reordered so that you see my content first. You see my featured section first. You see the content that I post. You see that before you see all the other stuff.
Okay. So you mentioned hashtags real quick. So how do I figure out which hashtags I should be using based on who I am?
There's no wrong answer to that. There's also no right answer to that. It's just another way to help being found on LinkedIn. I would go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, see what other people that do what you do are using, and you can see how many people follow those hashtags. So the reality is, if there's a ton of people that follow a hashtag, it stands to reason that you may want to come up with those people. But at the same time, if there's a million people that come up for it, you're lost in the crowd, right? See, if you can get a little bit more granular with what specifically you do. For example, if what you do is geographically important, a hashtag might be the region that you work in or the state that you work in, right? So think about those kinds of things. If you just hashtag realtor, but you work in New Jersey, who cares? Somebody in California, right? So think about it like that. Like, what are the things that would get granularly to drive people to specifically to what you want them to find you for?
Okay, that's awesome. So as far as, so you want us to put it in Creator Mode, and then what should I go through as far as, I know there's some basic errors. I know you talk about this a lot. So what are some kind of best practices these days? I know it changes a lot. What are some of the things you often see? I know you review pages. I saw you doing that this morning. I was watching you for a little bit.
I do that, yep, every week.
Yeah, you're reviewing pages, and so everywhere from somebody that hasn't really started their LinkedIn page and they've left everything out to people that kind of need to tweak it a little bit to talk about themselves a little more. So what are some of the common things you typically see that we should really kind of pay attention to?
Well, most common is people don't want to do their about section, and I get that. Nobody wants to write 2,600 characters about themselves. It's hard. So most people overlook that, and that's what makes this not a resume. That's where you can tell a little bit of a narrative about what makes you unique. Tell me the story of you. Don't tell me that nobody cares if you know Word or Excel, but they might care that, I mentioned today, there was somebody on the thing today, and I know this woman personally, and I said, I know the story that you started doing this work because you woke up one morning and you had to care for somebody's finances, and you had this massive pile of receipts somewhere and you didn't know what to do with them, and you had tell me that story, because people can relate to that, and people might say, well, I need to talk to her because I totally get what she's saying, right? So make it more of a narrative than just bullet points about what you do. Hook people in, tell them a story, and let them know what makes you excited about what you do, right? What makes it different. Like, I literally just changed my about section a couple of weeks ago, we're all in New Jersey here, so I literally said Jersey girl rant. I don't understand why everybody's using all these use all the platforms you want, but don't do it till after you use LinkedIn. Like, do your LinkedIn work first, because that's where the money is, and then you can do all that other stuff. And I literally put that in my about section because I think it's interesting than just reading about what skills I have.
That is awesome. I know we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm here with Karen Yankovitch, and we're talking LinkedIn, and I think it's awesome. I said you were just talking about how people don't like to do the About section, and I think that's something that I know I get coached on all the time, is that people talk about, well, what do I talk about? Because, I don't know, I'm a private wealth manager. Like, well, there's thousands of them in the country. What makes you different? Well, nobody else has the exact same personal story that I have. So if you really boil it down to your real personal story and be honest, the good, the bad, the ugly, Tell them why you do what you do, why you have a passion for what you do, and how you can actually help somebody through your experiences, your life experiences, plus your expertise.
Right.
And that's a unique story no matter who you are. And
Exactly.
it's interesting. If you make it interesting, people are going to want to read about that.
Exactly. And Kurt, I know a lot of people that are in the finance world. Some of them have licenses and they have to be careful about what they can and can't say on LinkedIn. I totally get that. And probably this is not something anybody can say, but I'll use it as an example. You can say, I'm a financial planner and I help people make a lot of money, like 90 million other financial planners do.
SEC may not like that.
Right. Or you can say, I'm a financial planner and I focus on helping women over 50 create enough wealth to retire at 60.
Right.
So now you're telling me about you, but you're making it about me. And you're making me go, I want to retire at 60. Wait, what do I do to
That's
what
true.
do I do
Nobody
to make
cares
that
about me. They
happen?
only care about themselves.
Right.
Truly.
It's true. It's true,
You have
right?
to talk about your
Exactly.
client you're
So
serving.
tell
Yep.
us a little bit about what the results are in a way that is, compelling for me to wait. They'd be like, wait, I want that.
Right. Absolutely. So we tell the story. We put it in a client-focused framework
Exactly.
and personalize it. Right.
Exactly.
So what else should we be doing on there? I know you got to put the basics. You got to put the photo. I think that's got to
Yeah,
be.
yeah,
You don't
you
want to put
wanna
the
have
photo
it-
from the kids' camp, right? Where you got to take it on the way out, right? That's got to be a decent
And there's
photo,
some
right?
cool things you can do. You can even do a little
Yeah.
video in that photo now. If you
Okay.
do it from your mobile device, you can make a little video that just says, hey, I'm Karen. And I can, again, I have that on my profile. You guys can check that
Right.
out.
Yep.
You want to have a header image, which is that banner at the top. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be a beautiful picture of where you live. It could be, it doesn't have to be anything created. I mean, I go back and forth between ones that are created with ones with me just with a microphone in my hand,
Right.
in front of a group of people. But use that space because it helps you show up it makes people see that you're paying attention, right? Another relatively new section on LinkedIn is the featured section.
Mm-hmm.
It's also really valuable because this is where you can drive people to what you want them to do next, right? What exactly, they're on your LinkedIn profile.
Right.
Now what do you want them to do? Do you want them to call you? Do you want them to get on your email list? Do you want them to listen to your show? What do you want them to do next? And you can put those things in the featured section. And I will say one of the biggest mistakes I see people make here, and this is a personal opinion that this is a mistake. They put too many things in their featured section. Nobody
Right.
cares enough to watch all your YouTube videos. I don't care how good they are. If you put 10 YouTube videos in there, nobody's watching them. And you've wasted the opportunity to give people the opportunity to take the next step with you. Right? Instead of having here's a link to book a call with me or here's a link to my latest podcast episode. So they're going to do one of those things. Instead, you're overwhelming them with all the things you've got. So many people put a lot of stuff there. And I'm a fan of 2 things max because
Right.
that way, again, you really want to think about what is it? Why are you there? What do you want to build these relationships for? What do you want people to do next?
Right. Yeah, it's awesome. I know a couple of things I just discovered personally. This was really funny. I'll tell you. One is that you can actually, state your name there so
Yeah.
people can know how to
Yeah.
pronounce it. Especially mine's pretty easy. Kurt Baker, that's pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
But there's other names that aren't quite so easy.
Yes.
And I know that I've got people that I know that I've known them for a while. And I'm always have to think about how to pronounce their name. And if they did that themselves, I'd be like, okay, now I've got it. I know
And don't
exactly
you
how this.
appreciate it when they've done
I do.
that?
I do because
when
now I know how to
right.
pronounce it. So
Right.
you want
That's
to
a really
describe that a
cool
little
feature.
bit? So,
It's like a little megaphone that is an
Right.
option in your information section at the top of your profile, and you can just say your name, right? And I think you have to record it on mobile device.
Right.
A lot of people use that. You can say anything you want. You can say
Okay.
anything you want there, right? But I'm going to be annoyed if I'm going to hear what your name is, and you say, "Hey, buy my stuff," right?
Right, yeah, don't do that.
So make sure if you want to say buy my stuff, I could maybe say, hey, my name's Karen Yankovitch, and don't miss the latest episode of the Good Girls Get Rich podcast at goodgirlsgetrich.com. I could
Right.
say something like that if I really
Right.
wanted to, but make sure you at least say your name because that's what people
Absolutely.
are expecting when they go to that section.
Correct. The other thing I thought was really cool, and I used it for the first time. I'd heard about it and then I actually used it. Was you can create a QR code to exchange and get connected. You want to describe that feature, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's all built in, right? It's all built in. In fact, one of the things I did recently at a conference I was at, we had a little printer and we would print the QR codes for LinkedIn for people on stickers, and they can stick it on the back of their badge at the conference to help people easily connect with people on LinkedIn. It's just and you just go on your app and there's a place on the LinkedIn app that shows you what your personal QR code is, so that people can connect there. So that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I just thought that was neat.
Yeah.
As you said, things are constantly changing. They're getting
Constantly.
better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I'm doing my my history portion, because that's a lot of information. So you have any tips about how I describe my past history, because it might be very, very diverse, but it also might be very different than what I'm doing now. Do you have any kind of tips about how you kind of tie all this together to give yourself an image?
You know I do. So here's the thing. This is the most resume-like part of LinkedIn, right? This is where it's resume-like. And I would like you to continue to think about keywords, though. Like, if your title was vice president, nobody's searching for a vice president, right? But if you're like, for example, I was vice president of a company a bunch of years ago and my title was vice president.
Right.
But if you go to my LinkedIn profile, it says vice president of marketing and media. Marketing and media are keywords for me. If what I was doing now was human resources related, because I did everything, I might say vice president of human resources. It's true. It was never on my business card, but I did do that work. So I don't want you to make stuff up that you didn't do.
Right.
But be creative in your titles. Thinking, because people are going to want to know a little bit more about that. But here's the most important thing I think about that experience section. What you want to do is you want to build a story of what brought you to where you are today. So if you worked at McDonald's when you were 15 and you want to put that on your LinkedIn profile, and right now what you do is customer service oriented, then tell me there that what you loved most about working at McDonald's was when old man Murphy came in and everybody made you go to the register because you were the only one that he liked, right? Relate everything back in the previous experiences to what's important now. If I use that same example of the company Infinity Communications Group, when I was vice president of that company, I don't even talk about doing HR work in that. It's not relevant at all to what I'm doing now. So you don't have to, it's not a resume where you need to list all the things you did. Just talk about the things you did that are relevant to what you're doing now, to whatever extent you can. I mean, there may be things that are completely different. I do feel like there's always a way, because it's all part of your journey, right?
Correct, absolutely.
It's all part of your journey. So tell me a little bit about how that feeds into what you did today. I literally had somebody write their profile like that one time, and it was awesome. She literally said, and when I did that company, that made me uniquely qualified to do this, which I'm doing right now in every single one, right? It's okay to do that. There's no LinkedIn police that says, here's how this has to be done, right? So if you're telling the story of what brought you to where you are today and kind of look at that experience section as a place that you share your journey, that's really the energy of that. From there, do what you got to do.
See, I'm right now, as you're talking about this, I'm envisioning myself sitting in an interview with somebody explaining, like, well, why did that job when you were 15 at McDonald's, how does that relate to what you're going to do for me here at this corporation 30 years later?
Right.
And you have to answer the question. So now you just answer it proactively and just put in that information about what experiences you pulled from that. Not just that, hey, I was I was flipping burgers in the back.
Right.
And they're like, okay, what does that mean? Right.
But what you don't know is this guy, for all you know, this guy that's interviewing you or this woman that's interviewing you, maybe she worked for McDonald's. And when she says, remember coming home smelling like French fries every single night, like it might actually be a nice connection point. I actually do. Right. There you go. Right. So it might actually be a nice connection point. Yeah. So, it's not like, I will address something else that I get asked a lot. And again, my opinion. So many people say, should I go all the way back to the beginning? And I think yes, because somebody that worked with you at McDonald's when you were 15 might say, is this the same Kurt that I worked with at McDonald's, whenever that was? So I think yes. But there's a lot of people that worry about doing that because of ageism. And they worry that people are going to know how old they are. And at the end of the day, like, people know how old you are. Like the world of people not knowing how old you are, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that's over. Like you have your high school friends posted on Facebook that your 30 year and your 40 year and your 50 and 60 year reunions happened last week. Like people know how old you are now. We live in a world where everybody knows everything about you.
That is true.
So I feel like just make it valuable to you and don't worry about it. If you're worried about it, I get it. I don't think you're able to hide it as much as you think you're able to hide it.
So I should be telling people about the first time I bought cards when I was 11 years old and sold them door to door. I should be telling people that?
Yes, why not? Why not, right? But that's a fun, but you know what? That's a fun little story to talk about when you were in your about section, right?
It actually was an experience. That was, Right. My parents thought I was crazy, and I ended up being a little crazy. So it was, it's like, let's just say I had lots of cards for a couple of years when I was done. It wasn't my most successful venture, but it was a great learning experience, that's for sure.
Right.
So you write that in a way that works for you, right? So we're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm here with Karen Yankovitch, and we're putting together the profile, all the experience. Apparently, we go all the way back to your very first business venture when you're 11 or 12 years old, I guess. Apparently, I don't have that on mine.
If you want, you don't have to, but if you want,
so maybe
you
I have to
can.
go back and update mine and go back a few more jobs to give you the real basis of where I started. So once you got all this set up, so how do we go beyond that? How do we move beyond the profile aspect of it?
Yeah. So, I was doing a talk one time, a live talk one time, and somebody after I talked, stood up and said, "All right, Karen, this was great, blah, 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 but I'm nailing you to the wall. Give me one thing I need to do about LinkedIn from now on." And I so wanted to say, do your profile. I really wanted to say, you have to have a great profile. But the reality is, having a great profile that nobody sees is like nailing a beautiful flyer to a tree in the middle of the forest, right? The beauty of LinkedIn is the relationships. You have to be consistent. LinkedIn 100% can be a money tree for you. But it's a money tree if you are watering that tree. And that means, that doesn't mean get the profile done, update when you need to update it, but now do some outreach and make sure, it's interesting. So many people feel like there's not a lot of people in their existing network, but start with your existing network. Spend some time, make a list of 50 people if you can, or 20 people that you're already connected to that you haven't talked to in a while, and just reach out and say, "Hey, remember we met at that conference a couple years ago, and I see that you've changed jobs since then. I'd love to catch up. I'd love to hear what you're up to." I mean, do it strategically, right? You want to, whatever your business goals are, your career goals are, do it strategically, but start with your existing network, because there's probably opportunities there that you are just not even you don't know that they're there because you haven't talked to these people. But then, be proactive in building your network. Not 100 people a week. There's a lot of AI tools out there that are spamming LinkedIn these days. And I'm not talking about doing that. I'm talking about strategically reaching out to people. And there's 3 categories that I like to build relationships in. And the first category is, let's not overlook the people that might be able to hire you, give you, whether it's for a job or for whatever it is you're looking for. But the conversations around, here's what I do, give me your credit card, is not really the top level conversation you want to have. But we don't want to overlook that. Those are people we want to build relationships with, people that might want to hire us. The other 2 categories is where the biggest power is on LinkedIn. The first one is, who else serves an audience of people that you serve, right? And those conversations now are, here's what I do, who do you know? Just Kurt, you and I met at networking events, like a true networking conversation. But look, go to the member directory of the networking organizations you're part of and make a list of another 50 people. And then just take 5 a week and reach out and say, "Hey, we're both members of this organization. Looks like you're doing some cool things. I'd really like to get to know more about you." Even if you think they might be a great client for you, or you want them to hire you for a job, that's not the energy of the conversation. Is still around, here's what I do, who do you know? And now you're getting warm introductions to people in their company, or maybe their cousin or their neighbor or their business colleague. That's how I grow my business, with those conversations. And then the third category, and this is something that almost nobody does, but it's so powerful, is who are the journalists that write about and talk about the kinds of things you're an expert in? And are you building credibility by being interviewed on podcasts or newspapers or magazines or blogs, and building relationships with those journalists? I've had some massive media opportunities that came from me just genuinely building relationships with the people that write articles about the kinds of things I do. I am routinely going to business publications and typing the word LinkedIn into the search bar to see who wrote articles about LinkedIn. And it's the people that wrote the article that I want to be connected to. I don't really care that much about the article. I want to know who's writing those articles. And, I've had people have I've had people be on NBC News. I've had people be on The View by doing that, literally connecting. I have a student right now who is in media, and she was going to be in New York, and she was meeting with some morning show producers because she wanted to be connected to them for some of her clients. And we sat down and we just made a list of like 50 producers and morning show producers. And she went through the list and started connecting with them all and said, I'm going to be in New York, want to have coffee. I'm going to be in New York, want to have coffee. And she built her whole, a whole schedule around that. So looking to see, don't just look for the articles about and to share the articles, look to build relationships with the journalists, with the publishers of those magazines, and the podcast. Are you connecting with the hosts of your favorite podcast? So Kurt and I are expecting a lot of connection requests after this show, right?
Of course.
Are you connecting with the hosts of your favorite podcasts? Because that's how, if you want to, I have a podcast, I get pitched all the time. I don't know these people. I'm not very likely to take a cold pitch from someone, not for any other reason than I don't know them.
Right.
But if I wake up one morning and on LinkedIn you shared an episode of my show and you said, love this episode 202, you tagged me, you tagged my guest. Even if I don't know you, I know you now. Right. It doesn't happen all that often. So you remember those things, right? And that's the kind of thing. Now I'm going to look at your link, and if you've done the profile part, right now you look worthy of my time. Now I'm paying attention and I'm going to want to build a relationship with you. And these are much faster ways to build your business, build your credibility, and build your visibility. And you don't have to pay a $10,000 publicist every month to make it happen.
Well, that's just awesome. Yeah, so just a little bit of working at a high return, right? So leveraging your time is what this sounds like.
Exactly.
And so you can organize that. I know there's different levels. Some people just have the basic LinkedIn. Do you want to talk a little bit about the premium and et cetera? I know there's different things you can get.
Yeah, so LinkedIn Sales Navigator is what I have, and it's really the one tool probably the number one tool in my toolbox. Right. LinkedIn is very particular about they do not want anybody to log into your account but you. So. And they will flag you at least once a week. I get a call from somebody that says my profile got shut down. What should I do? And I want to say to them, well, you should have hired me instead of the person you hired because they got your profile shut down because they were doing all this illegal stuff, right? So the bottom line is because of that, you have to do all the work, right? And we're busy. We don't want to do all this work. Right. So anything that we can do to leverage our time, I'm willing to pay for. So Sales Navigator will do things like when you're doing these searches, let's say you're doing these searches for journalists or people in a network that you belong to. One of the search parameters is now narrow this down only by people active on LinkedIn in the last 30 days. So that saves you from even connecting or reaching out to so many people. It saves you time, right? There's so many other things in Sales Navigator that are huge. You can save leads. Nobody knows you saved them, but you can save leads. And what it does is you'll have a separate wall just of the content that the people you saved gives you. So now, again, this is about relationship building, right? So you don't have to go searching for the podcast host or the journalist that you want to build relationships with. Sales Navigator serving it up to you every day, right? So there's a lot of features in there that helps you navigate the relationship building and manage and leverages your time. Right. And the people that I work with are all busy, and anything I can help them with that can help them save time to do this. Because we talked about a lot of things, but it really doesn't take a lot of time. But again, if I can save them an extra half hour a week, I'm all down for doing that. So that's why I love the premium version. There are other premium versions. There's a job seeker. There's a hiring recruiter. So if you're looking for a job or you're recruiting, then you may want to look at those. But I think for the vast majority of the people, Sales Navigator is well worth the investment.
Okay, so you set up the more advanced. I know you can track it. You can actually organize things a little bit better too.
Yeah, you can. You can create lists. You can create lists. So if you go to a conference and you connect, you have 100 business cards, you can connect with those 100 people and put them all on a list, and then manage that list within Sales Navigator. So you know how many times we've gone to conferences and you come back and you're like, what just happened? You don't even do much follow up at all, and then you go to the next conference and wondering how do you leverage these things. You're just collecting business cards.
You're not really doing anything with them.
So Sales Navigator helps you dive deeper into actually using LinkedIn to get opportunities.
Wow, that's incredible. So now I've got my profile set up, and then I'm starting to manage it. So what else should I be doing to try to cultivate my business?
Yeah,
right?
So this is going to be a little radical, Kurt. So I don't know if people can handle this.
Oh, no.
The goal is actually to get on the phone with people. Get on the phone, an actual good old-fashioned phone call. You can even Zoom if you want, but it's not about having a big network. It's not about having pen pals. It's not about DMing. Right. Your goal with every single person you connect with is to hopefully get on the phone with as many of them as you can. Right. And those conversations literally are, here's what I do, who do you know, right? Like having those kinds of conversations. if you're having 5 of those conversations a week, your business has changed forever.
Right.
Like, I promise you that. But so many people this is what I mean about, like, I think this was maybe before we went live. We talked about, like, this is good old fashioned marketing. Get on the phone with people, right? Like, this is where we're taking these tools that we now have that we didn't have 20 years ago, and we're using them to manage our time. And now but what still works is when you talk to people. Right.
Yeah, we're still human beings. We like to hear our voices and even meet, right? You can get together, you can have coffee, you can have lunch, whatever. But I mean, you have to make, this is a great way to manage all these connections in a very efficient way and make sure you don't forget about. I know when I've gone through mine, I'm like, oh, I get that person just like totally drops off your radar because I haven't talked to them in a while. I'm like, well, we should actually like reconnect again because we do have a lot in common. We just, for whatever reason, there wasn't a connection recently.
Right. And you can even use, you can use LinkedIn. LinkedIn Sales Navigator has some built-in CRM type tools.
Right.
I actually use Asana, which is a separate tool. And but I only put people in Asana if I really want to follow up with them. Like, not everybody goes into Asana. You can just keep them as a saved lead, and as a saved lead, they're going to continue to be on your radar. Right. And then at some point you may see that, here's the deal. We're talking about this like it's so easy. It really is this easy, but there's also going to be a percentage of people who are just not going to respond to you. Just let them go. Just let them go.
Right.
Don't worry about the people spamming you. Just let them go. And just stay focused on the opportunities and the people that are responding and keep it going. Water that money tree every single week.
Yeah, it's always a numbers game, right? So we're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm here with Karen Yankovitch, and we kind of went through the basics of LinkedIn. You want to set up the basics of the profile. You want to use some of these cool features like pronounce your name so people know what this sounds like, and they'll hear your voice, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Set up your experience, get your contacts going, actually connect with them. And there's a lot to do. So I know personally when I get like coached, like there's all this information. Where do I really start, and how do I actually kind of put one foot in front of the other so I don't feel overwhelmed and I'll actually do it? Because you actually have to do this, right?
You do. And that's what I mean when I said LinkedIn really expects you to be the one doing all this. And let's get real, Kurt. You really can't outsource relationship building.
Right.
So it does have to be you. I'm really committed to having a simple a process as possible so that it's doable. And I tell the people that I work with that I basically teach you to fish, not fishing for you. Right. Because when you learn how to do this process, you can literally take LinkedIn out of the picture and you can continue. It still works. It's still building your business because it's learning about how to reach out to people, what to say, how to say it. But honestly, once you get the profile piece done, which is the upfront work, there's obviously more upfront work because you got to figure out what you're saying and how to create searches and things like that. But if you're doing outreach to 5 new people a week, that's all that you need to do to make this really profitable for yourself. It doesn't have to be, you don't ever, in fact, if you spend a day and say, I'm going to spend a day and do 100 today, if you do what we talked about and you've done this research and they're warm people and they're active on LinkedIn, you're not going to be able to keep up with their responses. Right. And now you just, you blew opportunities.
Right.
So 5 people a week and just try to stay on top of it. If they don't respond, let them go. And as you start doing this, again, every single week, like you brush your teeth, if you're doing this every single week, you'll start to see opportunities and there's not a lot of time involved in the consistent strategy of this, but the LinkedIn message box then becomes one of your most valuable tools in your business because that's where all business is happening. So I think it's just a matter of taking the things we talked about here today, being consistent with it, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Right.
Just reaching out to 5 people a day. Use those 3 categories that I shared. Maybe each week pick a different category and find 5 in the different categories. And what happens when you're building your network proactively is you have a network that you've created that is valuable to you versus a network that was reactive to and you don't know who any of those people are. Right? So in 6 months, you're going to be so happy that you did this work because you've got a funnel, you've got leads coming in, you've got a lead funnel, and you've got a network that you can count on when you need it.
That's great. So are there any tools out there to help me kind of walk through? Because I know LinkedIn, because I remember like one of my experiences like about a week ago, I've heard you could do the QR code thing. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I didn't have time, like most people, to go actually figure it out because it wasn't a priority item. And then I was at a networking event yesterday, and I go, yeah, I understand you can do the QR code. And one of the two people I was standing in front of, she goes, hey, I know how to do that. She shows me, and her coworker didn't know how to do it.
Right.
They were both young, so I felt better, right? They're both young people.
There's
I thought everybody young knew how to do this stuff. So, but it was kind of interesting. So, is there a way to kind of get like kind of the basics and training and just say, hey, here's how you can, so you can kind of see how it's done? 'Cause I mean, LinkedIn is like, there's so much stuff going on there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I think you should listen to my podcast. There's a lot of ways there. And I have a YouTube channel. Actually, if you go to linkedinprofiletips.com, it'll take you to a playlist on my YouTube channel that gives you, and I did it just a couple months before we were recording this, so it's fairly recent. I mean, nothing's ever completely current in social media, but it'll help you get through some of the profile stuff on this. But the one thing that we didn't talk about, and I didn't want to talk about for 2 seconds, and then I'll tell you why.
Sure.
There's also the whole point, like, so many people say, well, how do I get, nobody sees my posts on LinkedIn. Do I have to post? When do I post? We didn't even talk about that. Mm-hmm. The reality is, I don't care if you ever post or not. The value of LinkedIn is the relationships. It's getting on the phone with people. And yes, if you're an influencer, and I talked about the value of creator mode, so creating content, and I have a podcast every week, and you have this show. So content and staying top of mind with this network that you're carefully crafting is important, but it is the least, in my opinion, in my strategy, is the least important part of this whole thing. What's most important is that you do the work to get on the phone with people and follow that up to build your business and your career to whatever you're looking to build your business and career with.
So that's interesting. It's counterintuitive. So the goal is to get off of LinkedIn by using LinkedIn.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly right.
Because that's interesting, because one of the things I hear all the time is that, okay, well, you don't necessarily have to post, as you just stated, but it's good to go in and interact with other people that post.
Yes.
And so if they see, so people you want to connect with, then they're just going to see your name, so-and-so liked your post, or they saw what you got. And I think that, if nothing else, it puts your name in front of them occasionally.
Exactly. And I'm not going to qualify that by saying, of course, I think you should post. I think you should post, and I think you should engage on other people's posts, but not before you do the other stuff.
Right.
Right. The other stuff is the important stuff. And how many eyes are on my posts, I don't care. Right. Ever how many people see my posts. I care if the right people see my posts. And they do. If you're doing this right, they will, because LinkedIn's algorithm is going to lean towards the people you're engaging with and interacting with. So
once I get the thing set up, the other thing I hear about is a lot of times you want to send people to your own website, things like that, because LinkedIn is owned by LinkedIn, right? Yep. So at some point you want to make sure you're capturing the information. So regardless of what LinkedIn does, you've got their basics, name.
Yeah.
What the email address, whatever the case is, you want to get that somehow. So how do you transfer it from the LinkedIn, yes, I'm connecting with people, to my own system where I know I've got
There's so many places on LinkedIn you can share a link. There's in your featured section. There's so many places you can do that, because you're absolutely right. You do want to drive people to something you own, like your email list. There's a lot of places you can do that. Just this week, LinkedIn came out with a feature where if you upload a picture from your mobile device, you have the option right on the picture to put a link. So let's say you have you're doing a webinar. You can put a picture saying, join my webinar, and then right smack in the middle of the picture, there could be a link that says, click here to register. And it'll take you to the webinar, and then that's where they put their name and their email address in. So obviously you could put the link in the comment section as well, and there's other places to do that, but there's a few places on LinkedIn, and if you guys look on my profile, it's typically my masterclass. I have an on-demand masterclass. Every place that I've got watch my masterclass is a place you should have something to send somebody to your email list. Okay.
Well, that's good. So anyways, look at
completely
Karen's
copy
LinkedIn
my profile.
page.
Yeah, you have my permission.
You'll see how it's done right. Okay. All right. So what other tips do you have for us? I know you got tons of them. So.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot. I think at the end of the day, I just want to say, I'm not here to say that don't do Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or any of that other stuff. There's value in all of those things. But if the vast majority of your business comes from referrals, then do all that stuff after you've done the stuff we've talked about here today. Do this stuff first. Do it first every week. Connect with me. And like I said, I've got no end of tips. I'm on LinkedIn on a regular basis talking about this stuff. And, I want to also say too, remember that you are people see you and you don't know you're being seen. So
That's
show
true.
up in a way that really positions you as an influencer. You are an influencer. You know, one of my students that I talked to today, she has a podcast, and somebody had reached out to her and said, had posted on social media and tagged her that they listened to her podcast, and based on her podcast, it's a wellness podcast. For the first time in her life, she went to the doctor and her numbers were all improved and things like that. And she was telling me this, and I was like, does that make you speechless? Because that's the impact you're having in the world.
Right.
We don't remember that sometimes, that we're doing all this stuff and that there's actually people on the other side reading it and watching it, and their lives are being changed by it. So remember that as you're showing up, that people need you to be showing up as an influencer, and you probably, there's probably a higher level you can go with really positioning yourself. We all, especially women, we have a tendency to, to kind of, I got it, don't worry about it.
Right.
No. Tell them you're the best there is, and tell them why, because people want to hire the best there is, right?
True.
So you have to show up as if you're worthy, and you have to tell people you're worthy of their time, and don't be afraid to do that.
No, I agree 100%. So you want to really tell your story, and you want to kind of put it in a way that identifies with the people you're trying to reach. You get on the phone with them. So the follow-up itself, you said like 5 people a week. So how long should I wait before I say, nah?
Yeah,
Really
there's no real exact science to it. I think people, if you do it in the way where you're connecting with people are active on LinkedIn, give it a couple weeks. And if it's somebody, again, if it's somebody that you just kind of
Right.
took a stab in the dark, let them go. If it's somebody that you really want to be connected to, then find another reason. Like maybe there's some of the tools in Sales Navigator will also tell you who's been featured in the news in the last 30
Okay.
days. So if maybe they've been featured in the news, and you can tag them and say, I just read this article about, Mary Smith, and like there's ways that you want to do this. Is the warmer you can make this engagement,
Right.
the better chance you're going to have of getting results and building relationships with these people. So do whatever you can to warm it up.
Right. So basically, you want to get to know them as well as you can
Yep.
on a real basis.
Yep.
I guess we should be reading their profiles.
Exactly.
We should be reading their experience,
Yep.
what they're about, connect with them, look at what they're publishing, what they have, maybe their website.
Yep.
So when you're having a connection with them, even if it's somebody you already know, maybe it's been 5 years since you connected with them.
Right.
Things could have changed quite a bit. And
Yep.
personalize it.
Exactly.
To
And
exactly who they
start with, I'm so impressed with this work you're doing around this. Like start with stroking them a little bit, because they're going to, everybody, let them know that you read their stuff. It's okay that you read their stuff. A lot of people say, I don't like to go on people's profile because LinkedIn will say I was there. So what?
Right.
Like people know you're interested in them. That's a good thing as you're building a career.
Yeah, I have people look at mine multiple times like, why do they keep staring at me?
Yeah.
What's up with that?
And you know what you can do? You can go backdoor
I don't
around
care.
that and say hey, Mary, I was just thinking about you the other day. And Mary's going to be like, I was just thinking about you too. But meantime,
so funny.
They looked at your profile. That's how you were thinking about them, right? So, but again, keep it warm. This is, doesn't this feel better than just ads and spam and
Oh, yeah. I don't like the
TikTok
ads.
dances and videos and,
Let's
I don't
keep
know.
it
It's
real,
just,
right?
Yeah, it's just building actual relationships, talking to really cool people. And, it will change everything. If you take a step, if you kind of go back to the old way of marketing, actually talking to people.
Absolutely. This is amazing, Karen. Any final thought before we... Yeah.
I would love you to connect with me. Anybody that's listening wants to connect with me, just let me know. This is where we met.
Absolutely.
And, I would love to have your LinkedIn connection request.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. As always, it's been awesome. And we're here. Thank you for listening to Master Your Finances. Have a great day.
That's all for today's episode of Master Your Finances. Miss Kurt Baker's biggest money managing tip, or even a full episode? Head on over to masteryourfinances.us or 1077thebronx.com/masteryourfinances. Look for Master Your Finances on Anchor, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time, only on 1077 The Bronx.